Thank you all so much for making it to this room. I appreciate the accommodation to the last-minute schedule change. Welcome to External Sharing and Collaboration in OneDrive and SharePoint. My name is Catherine Feldman. I'm a program manager working on OneDrive and SharePoint, and I'm joined here today by Stephen Rice.
Hi everyone, I'm also a program manager, and not surprisingly, I also work on the OneDrive and SharePoint product.
We have a lot to cover here today about how we're working to improve sharing and collaboration in OneDrive and SharePoint. I do ask that you please hold your questions until the end, and we'll be happy to hold a Q&A if time allows at the end of this presentation. Now for today, I'm going to kick us off with an overview of sharing, and then I'm going to talk about all of the exciting new features that we have for end users. Stephen will then bring us home with a management overview, as well as everything that is new coming for admins. Now to kick us off, I'll talk about an overview of sharing here and how Microsoft 365 apps and services work together to power these incredible collaboration solutions. Now within Microsoft 365, these collaboration solutions are all built largely on top of SharePoint content services. Now for all of you admins in the audience, this is important for you to know because this is where the majority of policy configuration happens. All of those rich capabilities, security and reliability, this is what you've come to expect from Microsoft Enterprise Solutions, and these are largely powered by SharePoint content services. Everything from OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, these are all powered by SharePoint content services. Now, from all of this content here, for the next hour, I'll be focusing predominantly on files. In Microsoft 365, every individual has an individual library, and every team has a shared library. OneDrive is a place to start for all of your files, whether these be for your individual files, your files that are shared with you through other shared libraries, or files that are coming from other teams. OneDrive will connect you with all of them. It is the Files app. This is the place to start for your collaboration, and you can think of it as a modern-day Files app or maybe an Explorer app. So how does Teams fit into all of this? Well, Teams is the hub for teamwork. It's a chat-based workspace where you can collaborate with your team in either chat conversations or team conversations. Now, if you share files within your chat conversations, these will get stored in your individual libraries. If you share files within your team conversations, these will get stored in your shared libraries for your team. And OneDrive, it will connect you with all of them. And all of this is powered by SharePoint content services. So this is the overview that we have for how collaboration works within Microsoft 365 and how all of these apps and services work together to power these collaboration solutions. Now we want to show how Microsoft makes it easy and secure to share externally. To do so, we'll walk through a couple common scenarios, and Stephen's going to help me out on the recipient end. To start, we'll start with the most simple. This is for simple external sharing, where let's say I have some sales materials that I want to share with my partner, Stephen, and I want to be able to have him share them easily with any people on his team or otherwise, and not have any extra barriers to entry. Now I'm going to switch out of PowerPoint and show how this works in product by switching over to my OneDrive. Now here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so it's easier to see, and I'm going to find these sales materials that I want to share with Stephen. I'm going to go ahead and select them, hit share, and this brings up our sharing dialog that has a bunch of rich capabilities where you can select what kind of link you want to send and whether you want to have OneDrive generate an email that would be sent to Stephen with all of the important information. Now here, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that an anyone link is selected in this case because I want the easiest way to collaborate. We predominantly collaborate over Teams, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this link, switch over to my Teams view, and send it to him. And then Stephen will walk through what the recipient experience looks like.
Perfect. Can you hit, let's go to number 2. Great. So you see, here I am in Microsoft Teams, and as you can see, Catherine and I send a lot of links back and forth to each other. So here's the one that she just sent me, and all I have to do is click on it, and just like that, we load into Excel Online, and Catherine and I can start collaborating. It really is just that easy. Now, hold on, you might be saying, I see in the upper right you're signed in. How do I know that this link will work for anyone? Obviously, you have an account. So let me prove to you that it'll continue to work. So I'm going to come back to Teams and copy the link. And this time, I'm going to open an incognito window. So I have no credentials. I don't have an account. I've just got nothing. But when I click on the link, once again, I'm loaded into Excel Online. I can start collaborating. It works simply, it works securely, and it works for anyone. So let's switch back to the slides.
Great, thanks, Stephen. So as you saw, it's super easy to be able to set a link to Anyone access such that you can easily collaborate with people with any extra barriers to entry. This is similar to sending an email attachment, except for here we have the benefit of being able to track access and revoke it as need be. With that point, we'll talk about the definition of what an anyone link is in this case. It is a transferable, revocable secret key. It's transferable because it can be forwarded to others, revocable because access can be revoked at any time, and it's secret because the user does need that link to gain access. Now visually, how to show this is we want to be able to share this to anyone either inside or outside of our organization. This allows us to be able to keep track of where that link is being sent to and revoke access as need be. To recap, this is, of course, the easiest way to share files and folders. Recipients can decide who has access. It is guaranteed to open for anyone who receives it on any of their devices, and you can share it easily via the channel of your choice, whether that be email or Teams, as we most often collaborate in. Now let's talk about a scenario that may be a little bit more sensitive. In this case, we want to be able to share some budget numbers within our team at Contoso. I want to make sure that it's easy to be able to share that around my company, but I don't want to accidentally have it end up in a competitor's hands. In this case, I'm going to again switch back to my OneDrive and show how that works. Once this finishes loading. There we are. So in this case, I'm going to find the budget numbers here. We'll select the budget analysis, and I'm going to share it with Stephen, who is, of course, in my team at Contoso. Again, I'll open up the share dialog, but in this case, I'll select people in Contoso with the link. I'll hit apply, and again, copy this link to be shared in Teams. Now, this is the exact same process, but now I have an additional layer of security that I can be reassured that only people within Contoso will be able to open it. And I will go ahead and send that and hit it over to Stephen so that he can show what that looks like on the recipient end.
Perfect. Thanks, Catherine. So once again, I'm here in Teams. I see the new link that Catherine has sent me. And once again, I'm just going to click on it, and you'll see that it opens up in Excel Online, and we can begin collaborating. Now, once again, it just works. I'm already signed in with an account in Contoso, so I'm able to access it. But let's see what happens if I'm not signed in. So I'm just going to copy the link, open up an incognito window, and paste the link. You'll see that this time, unlike the link that worked for anyone, I'm actually required to sign in with an account in Contoso. If I enter a Contoso account, I'm able to sign in, I access a document, I can continue working. If I sign in with a Fabricam account or don't have an account at all, I'll be blocked, meaning that the link will only work for people in my company. So once again, let's go back to the slides.
Great, so as you saw, super easy to send it to people within your organization and ensure that only the intended recipients within this company will receive the link. Now, by definition, a people in my organization link is a transferable, revocable key, secret key that only grants access to internal users. Again, it's transferable because it can be forwarded to others, revocable because access, of course, can be revoked at any time, secret again because you need the link to gain access, but it only grants access to internal users, and in this case, it's members in my Office 365 directory. Again, to show this visually, if you were to try to access it within your company, you will be able to do so. But if that were to be accidentally shared outside your company, the access would be denied. This allows recipients to forward your link to whomever they desire within your company, but make sure that external people do not accidentally gain access. Now, with the topic of our talk here, we want to talk about secure external sharing. In this scenario, let's say I'm collaborating with someone named Larry who works at Fabricam Airlines, and it's worth noting in this scenario that Larry is actually predominantly a G Suite user. Now, in this case, it doesn't mean that collaboration necessarily has to be more difficult. So I'm going to walk through how I'm able to collaborate with Larry and ensure that he is the only intended recipient, but also it's still able to leverage all the powerful collaboration features that we've come to know and love at Microsoft. So I'm going to switch over to my OneDrive here. And now in this case, Contoso and Fabricam are exploring potentially merging, and we have a document to collaborate on the details. So I'm going to hit share, but in this case, I want to make sure that Larry is the only recipient who is able to open it. So I'm going to hit a specific people link here and hit apply. I'm then going to type in Larry's email, and Larry thankfully will be played by Stephen, and hit send for Stephen to walk through what this looks like on his end.
Perfect. So once again, I'm playing Larry now. I'm a member of Fabricam Airlines. I don't use Office 365, but we still want Catherine to be able to collaborate easily with me. So you see, here I am in Gmail, and just like that, the email pops up. Now, Catherine mentioned earlier how OneDrive crafts an email when you use that little quick send option. You'll see I get a nice preview of what the document is. It tells me what the name is, and it also tells me what this link type is. It tells me that this link will only work for the direct recipients of this message, which is me, Larry. And just to make sure that I know it's official, we've configured Contoso to show its own logo as part of this email as well. So I'm going to click open the email, and we'll show you how secure sharing works in OneDrive and SharePoint. And I opened this document earlier, so I'm going to close all. Actually, let's do an incognito window. We'll work a little bit easier. So, like you saw the first time, obviously, I open up the document, and I'm asked to verify my identity. Now, as we talked about, we want to make sure that Catherine shared this to Larry@fabricamairlines.com, and only Larry's going to be the one who's allowed to access it. We do this by sending Larry's email a one-time passcode, and this is the same email that Catherine had shared with originally. So if Larry forwarded this email to someone else, it still goes to the original person. So I'm going to pop back over to Larry's email account, and we'll see that I've received my one-time passcode. So that's perfect. I'm just going to copy this, open it back up in my browser session, and verify that I am in fact Larry, and I'm able to collaborate, and we can start figuring out how this whole Contoso Fabricam merger is going to go. And so that is how secure sharing works in OneDrive and SharePoint.
Do you have to do that each time you access the document?
Nope. It'll write a cookie to your machine, and so it'll continue to work for, I don't know the exact number of days, but it'll work for a while.
So as you saw, this is how secure external sharing can work, leveraging the power of specific people links. By definition, these are non-transferable, revocable secret keys that only grant access to the specified recipient, as you saw with Stephen demonstrating as Larry. It's non-transferable, as in it will not work if forwarded to others, and it is only intended for the specified recipient. Now, existing users will get access via their account, and new external users will have to prove ownership via this one-time passcode, as Stephen showed. Now, visually, you can see pretty clearly that the person here in blue, they are able to access the link, but if they try to send that to anyone else, either internally or externally, it will not work, since they were not the intended recipient. To recap, this is only for the people you specify. It can be internal or external, and if the user has no guest account, email verification happens via that one-time passcode. Now, I do want to cover one more scenario here as part of the sharing overview. In this case, we all know someone as part of our company who may lose things pretty frequently or may constantly remind you, hey, do you have a link to that file? Well, we do support this scenario in OneDrive with the people who already have access links. Now, in this case, it's super easy to be able to share this link again to someone who already has access without modifying existing permissions. You can do so easily, again, via the sharing dialog and selecting people who already have access. By definition, this is a non-transferable, irrevocable link, and it doesn't change the access of the item. Great, so that concludes our sharing overview here. Now let's get to the good stuff. Everything that is new for end users. Now, we've done a lot of investment in this space, and we've broken it up into 3 separate parts. The first is how we're improving sharing. The second, managing access. And third, finding relevant shared content for you. We'll start with how we've made sharing even better. Our first feature that we want to talk about is password-protected links. In this case, we want to be able to share something around with people that we're collaborating with, and we want to make it easy for them to access it, but we want to make sure that they don't accidentally share it with the wrong people and have that extra barrier to entry so that if the wrong people get a hold of it, they have an extra password that they have to enter before they can access the document. So I'll switch over to my OneDrive to show how this works once it finishes loading. And again, we're going to leverage this sales materials document. So I'm going to select this, I'm going to hit share, and again I'm going to have the anyone link in this case so that it's easy for anyone to be able to enter it, except for I'm going to add an additional complexity, which is a custom password. Now in this case, I'm going to enter a super secure password such as I love OneDrive and hit apply. And because I've done this before, I'm going to hit use new password, and I'll copy this link. Now for the sake of simplicity, I'll be demonstrating this via both Stephen and myself. So I'll send this to Stephen via Teams and switch over, hopefully that worked, to Stephen's view, make this a little bit bigger and easier to see, and walk through what this looks like on his end. Now, if he receives this link, he will be able to open it and access the document because he received this link previously. Now, this is not super impressive in and of itself, but if we take that same link and copy it, there we are, and open up a new incognito window, You will then see that Stephen is prompted to enter that passcode that I set earlier. So in this case, because Stephen is trustworthy, he knows the password, which is I love OneDrive. He enters that, and then he's able to access the document. No additional sign up, no additional account creation. He's able to get right into the document and share that with his team along with that password. Switch back to the files here. Great, so as you saw, this prevents accidental resharing of these anyone links, and it does require users to enter this custom password. This is coming soon to users, and we look forward to hearing your feedback. Now let's say I'm working with Stephen on a budget proposal, and I need his proposals by the end of this week. So I'm going to try to ask him to be able to submit his proposals to a shared folder that I've created for exactly this purpose. In this case, I've created a folder called Budget Proposals, and I want him to be able to add his budget proposals to this folder, but it's very important that no one else is able to see the submissions to this folder because it is inherently kind of a sensitive subject. So I'll show how this works by going into OneDrive, switching back to my files view, and selecting my Budget Proposals folder. Now, I now have the option to request files to this folder, which I'll go ahead and do. I have the option to specify which files I want to request, and I do indeed want to request budget proposals. And in this case, I do have the option to send it via email or via Teams. As I'm sure you can guess, I want to use Teams in this situation. So I'll go ahead and copy this, switch over to Teams, and copy that link in. Now, from Stephen's side, he will receive a link to this and be able to add his budget proposal. Now, once this loads, you'll see that he's not able to see any additional information about what has been submitted here. He doesn't know if I've asked other colleagues to submit, or if they have, what that content consists of. I'll go ahead and select the files that Stephen wants to submit, which are his beautiful budget proposals, and I'll go ahead and upload them. Once this succeeds, I'll switch over to Catherine, there we go, and show how this looks. Now, within budget proposals, you will see that there have been several submissions already, most recent one just arriving, and this has been intelligently renamed with Stephen's name at the beginning, such that I can easily find who all has submitted their budget proposals, sort through them, and be able to manage all of the submissions easily. As you can see, Alex Wilbur also submitted his, of which Stephen has no idea. Switch back to the files here. Great, so as you saw, super easy to ask colleagues to upload their files to a folder and prevent uploaders from seeing each other's content. This will be coming soon. Now, in this scenario, this is something that hit a little bit close to home to me. How many of you here have had to reach out to someone to follow up on a file that you may have sent them? Yeah, you don't have to admit to it. We've run into it reasonably often enough. Well, we have a feature here that addresses this need called link open receipts. It makes it a little bit harder for your colleagues to use the excuse, oh, sorry, I didn't see your email. I'll get back to you eventually. With this, you'll be able to be notified the first time that someone opens your file by sending you a link notification that lets you know that it's been opened. I will demonstrate this in OneDrive. Go back to my files view. Now, in this case, I want to get Stephen's feedback again by Friday, but I'm going to do it on this shipping budget file. It's important that I get his feedback, and I don't want to have to chase after him to make sure that he's actually seen it. So I'm going to send it, since I've already bugged him enough on Teams, I'm going to send it by email. Make sure to select him, send this along, and he should receive an email notification that I sent this folder to him. Switching over to Stephen, checking his mail. As you can see, I've been notified as Stephen that Catherine has shared this file, and I'll go ahead and open this. Now, on Catherine's side, once I check her email again, she should have received a notification that Stephen has opened this file for the first time, and it will tell me important information such as this was opened by Stephen, this was for the file shipping budget, as well as if this was sent accidentally, I'm able to revoke the access in case someone got a hold of this that I didn't intend. So let's see if that arrived. Sure enough, there it is. And here's the link open receipt with all the important information that makes it easy for me to know that Stephen has engaged with the document that I've sent. Now, it's great to know that he's opened the file. However, the important information here is really what his feedback is. We're able to get that via @mentions in Office documents, where I'm able to actually pull him into the document and make sure that his attention goes where it needs to be. Again, I'm going to switch back over and show what this looks like in this shipping budget, where once I open this as Catherine, I'll be able to add a comment and pull Stephen in and bring his attention to exactly where I need it. On Stephen's end, he will receive a notification via email. As you can see, there's been a bunch of collaboration here already. So I'll say, please take a look and let me know what you think. And I'll go ahead and send this off. Now again, on Stephen's end, he will receive a notification letting him know that I want his attention on this document, and he'll be able to jump in and start collaborating immediately. Now this does take a little bit of time, but I do have this open. So as you can see, there's already been that comment added there, and I can collaborate in real time using these comment functionalities. So as Stephen, him always being a very positive person, say, this looks awesome, no further edits. Now this is super useful if we're collaborating in an Office file, but we know that not all collaboration happens within Office documents. So let's say, for example, that we're collaborating on a tiny house project. Now, how many of you here saw the OneDrive keynote this morning? Okay, a couple. So we saw some functionality that was demonstrated there that we'll show off again here, but with an additional complexity that we want to be able to showcase. Now here, I'll go into my OneDrive, and we'll find that AutoCAD file that we've been collaborating on. Now, in this case, thanks to OneDrive, we now have rich file previews for AutoCAD files where we're able to see this beautiful rendering of a tiny house and be able to collaborate on it. So by opening up this tab, I'm able to add comments with my thoughts and notify everyone else who has access to this that I have thoughts to share. So in this case, I will say, I like this a lot, but maybe more green. So as you can see, this is a way that we are facilitating collaboration in any document, anywhere, no matter how you work. Awesome. So to recap, as you saw, we now have @mentions in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint so that we can pull in the relevant people to be able to take a look and make sure that they're notified of any important activity that are happening on these files. We have an automatic sharing prompt. So in this case, Stephen did already have access, but if he didn't, OneDrive would intelligently prompt me to be able to share it with him to ensure that there are no dead-end links that I'm sending out so that I'm able to collaborate with him in real time. We are excited to announce that this is available now on web, Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android, any of your devices. We also snuck in a super cool demo of AutoCAD previews where you're able to get these rich previews and interact with them as need be, and the ability to comment on all non-Office files and make sure that there are email notifications that are sent out for these comments. This will be coming soon. So all of these capabilities on OneDrive Web are super exciting, but we know that you're not always sitting at your desk. We want to make sure that collaboration is supported wherever you are. We know that you may be frequently sharing on the go. You're at a conference right now, and let's say that you want to share the notes that you've taken on your phone with someone who's back at home who's not able to attend the conference. This may be something that you're doing while sitting here, hopefully not. But if so, then we want to be able to support it. So to illustrate this, I'm actually going to switch over to my iOS device here and show how this may work. See if this is working properly. I'll set it down so it doesn't flicker. Great. So in this case, I've taken some notes in Microsoft Word, and I want to be able to share them with Stephen, who is standing right here. But if he weren't, then and he were back at home, I would want to be able to easily share it with him. Now, as you can see, this is the same consistent experience that you saw on OneDrive Web, and you're able to have the same capabilities in mobile. Now, that's great for Word, but if we wanted to take a look at Teams and be able to accomplish the same thing, I would want to be able to attach that file via Teams conversation. In this case, I'll select the conference notes, and once it finishes uploading, you should see the same capabilities. Now, unfortunately, it seems we're at the mercy of some conference Wi-Fi, so that didn't work, but it's okay because I have a screenshot that would show what it looks like. Now, in terms of Teams on our desktop app, we should see the same consistent experience. To illustrate that, I'll switch back over to my Teams here, and I'll attach the same file of my conference notes, which I'll be able to find here, and share a link. Now here I have the capability to change this link such that if I want Stephen within this chat to be the only person to access it, I can easily do so by selecting people currently within this chat. I'll go ahead and hit apply and send that off to him. So that is just the way that we are trying to support collaboration wherever you are in any of your apps. Awesome. So as you saw, we have a consistent experience in all of our Office apps and as well as in Teams. You would be able to select what kind of link you want to share, make sure that you have the right permissions for each of these cases, and that we support collaboration on the go and anywhere access on all of your devices. If you haven't already, we would love if you could try out our mobile apps and download them today. We also saw that thanks to the powerful OneDrive integration in Teams, we now have full sharing functionality in Teams on our desktop as well. Now we'll shift gears to talk about how OneDrive makes managing access even easier. Let's start with our first scenario. In this case, let's say that we're working on a pricing plan. We have two partners that we want to collaborate with. The first is an external partner. We want them to be able to interact with this file, but we don't want them to be able to edit it. So we want to set this to a read-only link. We also want to be able to send it to our internal sales team. In this case, we would want an edit link so that they can actually offer feedback as need be. Thanks to OneDrive's smart link protection, we are able to prevent against accidental changes by creating isolated links when necessary to avoid any collisions. So whenever I create a new link that has different permissions than the existing links, it will preserve the existing links. It will preserve the existing permissions while creating a new link as needed. Now let's talk about a scenario where I want to be able to remove access from a specific file. Sorry there. So in this case, I'd want to be able to remove access from someone who I've been working with on a project, and I want to be able to granularly remove this person from that file. I will do so by switching over to my OneDrive. Close out of this beautiful preview. And in this case, I've been collaborating with Stephen on this shipping budget. So I'll go ahead and select this file, open up the details pane, and in this case, with the brand new Redesign Manage Access panel, I'm able to see all of the links that are being sent out as well as who has access. So as you saw, I sent out a bunch of links earlier, and I can go ahead and remove these as needed to make sure that this is no longer shared. Super easy, super efficient, and able to make sure that this is now a completely private file. This is something that you cannot do with any email attachments and is a benefit that the cloud has to offer. So as you saw, super easy to see who all of these links that are shared, and very quick to unshare them and make sure that this file is now private as needed. This is available now. So that's great if we want to look at one individual file, but if we want to see all of the files that we have shared out, take a look at the new Shared by Me tab within Shared. This makes it easy to see all of the files that you've shared outwardly and remove any access as needed if anything is shared by mistake. Okay, 2 sections down, 1 last to go. OneDrive makes it super easy to get back to relevant shared content and OneDrive makes it easy to get back to content that is shared with you. Now, in this case, many of us are at a conference and we know that a bunch of work is going on at home. How many of you here are at least a little bit concerned about missing some work or important files that have been sent out? Yeah, well, we know that that's a pretty common scenario, and luckily, OneDrive has a capability that will remind you in case you forget to check out that file within 7 days. This is important because we know that if you don't check a file within 7 days, it's 95% likely to be forgotten. We've introduced sharing reminder mails that will notify you if you haven't checked out a file within 7 days. This is available now. Now for this scenario, let's say that I've been asked to check out some benefits that are offered at Contoso, but it's not normally part of my main functionality in my role. I don't frequently check out this shared library, so I want to be able to get back to any files that I have activity in very easily. And thanks to Save for Later, I'm able to do so. So in this case, let's say that Steven is someone who I collaborate with very frequently, and he's notified me that there's a particular file that's very important. I'll switch over to my OneDrive to illustrate how this works. Awesome. So in this case, I'm going to go to my Benefits at Contoso shared library. I see some important activity happening here, and because I'm in the middle of giving a presentation, I don't exactly have time to take a look at them right now. However, I do have the option, thanks to this new Save for Later feature, to be able to select them and then hit Save for Later, then be able to hit Save for Later such that I'm able to find them easily in the future. In this case, I have them now available in my Save for Later as well as other documents that I need to be able to get back to easily. This helps you easily find files that you care about, even if you don't normally go to this location to find them. This is coming soon. Now, because you're all likely go-getters and want to be able to stay on top of important information that's happening in your company, we've introduced an intelligent new feature that helps you know what your company cares about and various colleagues that are important to you, what they're working on. We call this Popular Around Me, and this is easily accessible and able to find all of your relevant content easily. I'm going to switch over and see how that works in action. Now, in this case, it does live in my shared tab, which is where I do the majority of my collaboration, and I'm able to see that OneDrive is suggesting content at the top that might be most relevant to me. In this case, I collaborate with Steven pretty frequently, so I'm able to see a bunch of documents that he's been interacting with that are suggested to me based on their relevance. This will keep updating based on the more I use it, so that I know that I only have the most relevant content here appearing. This is just another way that we're trying to help you get back to relevant content most easily and make sure that you're aware of what your colleagues care most about. As you saw, this will help you stay on top of trending content in your organization and find relevant shared content most easily. This will be coming soon, and we're excited to hear your feedback on it. Now, finally, we want to talk about recommended. And if you've been paying attention, you might have noticed it at the top of our files view, but this is another intelligent feature that will recommend files to you that may be relevant and help you stay on top of important information in your organization. Just to quickly show you what that looks like, if it will allow me to get over there. You can see important information such as who may have shared this file with you, if someone has been doing important actions in it, maybe at mentioning you or otherwise, and helps you find what content you may want to jump back into most quickly. Oops. So as you can see, this will show files that, here we go. Files that may interest you based on subjects, colleagues, and your own actions. You can quickly resume what you were working on, be informed about files in your organization, and this will get smarter the more you use it. Again, this is coming soon to new users, and we hope that you enjoy it. Now, this was a lot to cover, so let's do a quick recap. We saw password-protected links, file requests, link open receipts, @mentions in Office documents, rich file previews for AutoCAD files, as well as comments on non-Office documents, a consistent sharing experience across all of our mobile apps, as well as in Teams, OneDrive Smart Link Protection, better manage access UI, shared by me, reminder mails, save for later, popular around me, and recommended. In summary, that is all that we have for what's new for end users and how we've been improving sharing, managing access, and finding relevant content. Thank you for following along, and with that, I will hand it over to Steven.
Thanks, Catherine. So let's switch over to number 2 if we can. So I'm gonna ask you all to take off your end user hats. You're no longer thinking about how you're gonna share files to everyone in the world without thinking about it, and put on your admin hats. Your job is now to protect your end users from themselves and make sure that your content is safe in your organization. So let me jump into presentation mode, actually, while I'm sitting here talking. So we're going to start by covering what management features we have for external sharing that are already available today, and then we'll start talking about what's new for admins. So OneDrive gives admins control over the organization's content. Now, when it comes to managing external sharing, we generally put all of our settings into 4 different buckets. You can control who can share to external users, you can control which external users can be shared with, you can control what can be shared externally, and you can control how externally shareable links can be used. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're looking at this slide and you're seeing a bunch of different stuff that looks way too overwhelming. But don't worry, we're going to walk through each one. And the important thing to remember is that we don't expect that every single organization is going to need to use every single setting that we build. But instead, what we do expect is that if you have a business requirement or a scenario that requires a particular functionality, you'll be able to find that in OneDrive and SharePoint. So for our overview, let's start by looking at how you can control who can share to external users. Now, on our permissive end of the spectrum, you can allow everyone to share externally. Anyone who's a member of your organization and anyone who's outside your organization can share freely. But if you want, you can restrict that down a little bit. You can make it so that only specified people are allowed to share outside of your company. Now, the idea here is you may have a training process that you want users to go to first, or you may just want to limit external sharing to those people who are actually responsible adults. Anyone who's in that group is allowed to share externally, and anyone who's not in that group is blocked. And on the other end of the spectrum, you can set it so that no one is allowed to share externally. Now, this is a pretty extreme view. We tend to find that when you lock things down super far, end users will just find ways to go around it, often in unmonitored ways. But I wanted to show you that this is at least possible from a completeness perspective. So now let's talk about how you can control which external users can be shared with. At the beginning of the talk, we showed you how you can get links that work for anyone. And these are links that you can get. You can pass them to someone inside the company. You can send them to someone outside the company. And those links can be forwarded on to other recipients as needed. But if you're not super happy with that, you can also require users to share with only authenticated external users. This is that specific people option you saw. It's where when you click share, you have to enter the actual email addresses of the people you want to share with. And those links won't work for anyone that you don't actually specify. Now, you can also do cool things like, say, block sharing with specific domains. So say you have a competitor, in this case fabricam.com, and you want to make sure that documents never get shared to people in that domain, you can set up a deny list and block that type of sharing. On the other side of things, let's say you work with a really trustworthy company that you really like. In fact, you might even go to a conference with them occasionally, say Microsoft.com. You can make it so that you're only allowed to share with people who have Microsoft.com email addresses. Anyone who tries to share with someone outside of that domain will be blocked. Now, the other really cool thing here is you can actually configure this allow and deny list on a per site basis, which means if you want to have one site for sharing with Microsoft and one site for sharing Fabricam, you can do that too. Another option here is to limit external sharing to only specific guest users. And the idea here is that instead of letting end users decide which external users need access, IT is now responsible for provisioning guest users in the directory, and end users will only be allowed to share with those guest users. So now let's talk about how you can control what can be shared externally. Again, on that very permissive end of the spectrum, you can make it so that everything can be shared externally across both OneDrive and in SharePoint. Now, one thing that's pretty neat is you can actually use DLP to add smart content rules and block sharing of sensitive files externally. So the idea here is you are generally okay with people sharing externally, but you want to make sure that things like social security numbers or credit card numbers don't actually get shared outside of the organization. You can also block sharing from OneDrives, and as of course, if we go one more, you can block sharing from specific libraries as well. So you can only allow sharing, say, from that sales team library instead of from that finance team library. Now, rounding out our 4 kind of different buckets, you can also control how externally shareable links can be used. First up, you can require that links that work for anyone will expire after some admin timeframe. So say you want them to expire after 30 days. As an end user, you can get these links as much as you want, but all of those links will expire within 30 days. You can make it expire in a sooner amount of time, but you can't extend it past that. Now, I need to apologize in advance. We're going to start talking about default link types and default link permissions, and I'm about to say the word default more than I ever thought was possible before I started practicing for this talk. So by default, when you share, you saw that you get that link that works for anyone. But as we all know, end users don't always think about what they're doing when they click share and they just send things out into the world. So what you can do is you can restrict the default down to, say, only people in my organization. And the idea here is that as an end user, when I click share, now I get this organization-only link by default. The cool thing is that as an end user, I can actually still go and get that links for anyone, but it's now a deliberate choice on my behalf. I don't do it on accident. If I click share and I'm not thinking, I'm protected, but I can still get to the cool functionality that I need to actually get my work done. And of course, you can also set the default to only specific people. And just like you can set the default link type, you can also set a default link permission. By default, we set it to edit, but if you want files to be view only by default, you can do that too. So that's the overview of all of the management capabilities that we actually have in the product today. So let's talk about what's new. We've got a bunch of cool features that I'm really excited to show you, and we're going to start by talking about where you actually would set up all these features, which is our new modern sharing admin page. So I'm going to pop out of the PowerPoint slide, and I'm going to come here to the SharePoint Admin Center. So I'll go into SharePoint. And if you've attended other talks this week, this new modern SharePoint Admin Center may be familiar to you. We wanted to redesign SharePoint Admin Center and really bring it into the future, or at least bring it into the present. Now, one of the things we've done is created a new modern sharing page as well. We've redesigned it so it's much easier to use, and it's a lot easier to understand what's going on at a glance. So I can see here that SharePoint and OneDrive both currently allow sharing via anyone links. But if I want to say disable all sharing, all I have to do is drag the slider down. If I want to say customize it so that SharePoint allows sharing via anyone links, but OneDrive is stuck on new and existing users, I can do that too. We've moved a lot of the advanced sharing settings that you probably don't need, but we're cluttering up the page into a bucket fittingly titled Advanced Settings for External Sharing. And you can see a lot of our default link settings here as well, and advanced settings for anyone links as well, including that link expiration feature that we just talked about. So let's come back into the slides. So you just saw the new modern sharing admin page, which has an updated design and improved organization to make it much easier to use and much friendlier. I want to call this out because we felt this pain a lot as well. We've actually improved the performance of the page. It's a lot snappier. It will save faster, which really just makes it a much more delightful experience. Now, this is available now as part of the SharePoint Modern Admin Center preview, and we're going to be continuing to bring more features into the Modern Admin Center as time goes on. Now, briefly, I want to dive down and talk about site administration as a site owner. Now, some of you may be aware we actually have a set of features that let site owners block sharing from members. So the idea is that only the site owner on the library is allowed to decide what content is shared in or out. And if you're not familiar with that setting, it's probably because it's buried deep in a classic advanced SharePoint page that's hard to find and even harder to understand. Well, to fix that, we're bringing all of those settings up into a modern site sharing settings panel. I can never get those 3 words out in a row. You'll be able to manage these settings a lot easier. They're much more discoverable in the site permissions pane, and you'll be able to manage access requests and enable them and customize them there as well. We're really excited to kind of bring this UI into the future, and it'll be coming to your tenants soon. And okay, I thought we were done with the default link stuff, but we're going to go back there and keep talking about defaults. So we talked about how you can set a default link type for your entire organization. But as you all know, it's really hard to find a single set of policies that works for every single person and every single library and every OneDrive in your organization. Oftentimes, we have sites that have unique requirements, and trying to find that one-size-fits-all policy is really tough and often results in end users becoming really frustrated because it's just harder to get their work done. We've introduced new per-site default link settings, which means that on a given library, you can say, I want, say, the legal team library to default to specific people, and I want that sales team library to default to people in my organization. This helps your users get their work done because they no longer have to worry about changing settings on a regular basis. Each site they visit is customized for the content in the site. This includes both the default link type, so you can set to anyone, people in my organization, or the specific people links, and it also includes the default link permission, view or edit. This is available now via PowerShell, and we're really excited for you guys to kind of play with this and start using it. Now, at the beginning of the talk, we showed off that new one-time passcode experience, which lets you share securely with anyone in the world via that simple one-time passcode experience. Now, we heard from end users that this experience was a lot simpler than what we used to have. It was really nice, simple to use, and secure. But from the admin perspective, we heard that a lot of you really wanted something like what we have in Azure AD B2B integration. That's the business-to-business guest management process. This is where guest users get created in your directory, and then you can apply additional policy on them like conditional access, multi-factor authentication, or Google Auth Federation. So we were sitting here and we had a great end user experience on one hand and a great admin experience on the other hand. And so we did the natural thing and we decided we were going to bring those two things together. Going forward, end users will still get that same one-time passcode experience, but as an admin, you'll get all the power and customization that Azure B2B brings to you. We're really excited to get this into your hands, and you'll be able to opt into a preview for this feature later this summer. Now, another thing we've heard a lot of feedback on is that it's great that we've got all this external sharing and collaboration, but it's really hard to understand who has access to my stuff. You can use auditing, which helps you kind of be Sherlock and figure out who did what when, but that's really hard to actually understand what is the state of my world today. And that's where sharing reports come in. It's all about helping you understand who has access to your stuff right now. So I'm going to show you a quick demo of the sharing reports feature and how it works. So this is going to be available on both OneDrive and on SharePoint. I'm going to show it to you in OneDrive because that's just what I have open right now. So Catherine showed you that shared by me viewer earlier, which tells you, hey, here's the list of files that are shared. And I can go through one by one with manage access and see who has access. But that you can see even here, I've got probably half a dozen to a dozen files that have been shared. So it's kind of a pain to go through each one and figure out what unique permissions they have. That's why we've added the ability to run a sharing report. So I can click Run Report. I pick a location for it, and then OneDrive will go off and run a report and spit out a CSV file that I can use to process the data. Now this takes a little bit of time, particularly on sites that have a lot of unique permissions, so I ran it ahead of time so we can just jump right into and take a look at it. So I'll come into my sharing reports folder and open up the CSV file that was generated. And just to make this a little bit easier to read, I learned how to do this at the booth earlier, and from a customer actually. It's always fun when I get to see things like that. So you'll see we've got a bunch of different information in this report. It tells me all about the resource URLs that are shared. It tells me what type of item they are, what permission the user has, what the username is or what the group name is if it's a group, what their email address is, what their user or group type is, which I'll show you in a moment and how cool that is. And then it gives me link IDs and link types as well, so I can understand how links are being used too. Now there's a lot of information here, and because it's in a CSV, you can process it in really whatever way you want to. But my favorite way to do it is in Power BI. So I've imported this already into Power BI, and I'll just spend a couple minutes, and I should preface this by saying I'm in no ways a Power BI expert, but OneDrive and Power BI make this really easy to do. So to start with, I want to try and understand what are the links that have actually been created on my site or in my OneDrive, and what types of links are they. So I'm going to bring in link type here, and I'm going to make this into a pie chart. And then, so I've got the legend as link type, which is perfect, and then I'll make the values also link type. And just like that, I can see I've got one link that works for anyone, I've got 3 links that work for specific people, and I've got 3 organization links as well. Now another question a lot of you often have is, great, now tell me about what files are actually shared with external people. And so let me show you how you can do that. So I'm going to bring in resource URLs, and I'm going to make this into a, whatever this is called, a bar chart, that's right. Bring resource URLs into values. So this is just the count of resource URLs that we have, and I'll make this a little bit bigger so we can read it. And then on my axis, I'm going to look at usernames. And so see, I've got a list of people. Our top one are sharing links, and I've already got a nice chart covering sharing links, so I'm just going to come down here, and let me close that, and open up usernames, and I'll select all of them, and I'm just going to drop out sharing links just so we can read it a little bit easier. So great. Now I can see I've got Keith Daigle, who's got access to 5 documents, Edgar's got access to 3, Jason has access to 3, and so on. This is where that user or group type column really comes into play. If I drag that into my filters, you'll see that I now can see and filter down to just external users, internal users, security groups, and SharePoint groups. So if I want to look at, say, internal sharing, I can see that my top collaborators on my OneDrive are Edgar and Navjot, and they each have access to 3 documents. But if I want to look at just external users, I can just look at the external user tab, and I can see I only have 3. Keith has access to 5 documents, Jason has 3, and Olga has 2. So this is just a really quick and simple demo that shows the power of the sharing reports. You get this CSV file that tells me about every unique link and every unique permission, and then you can use the app of your choice to crunch that data and draw out the insights that are most valuable to you. So let's head back into our slides. So yeah, as I said, it exports to a CSV. It's super easy to process and use. And as I said, I'm in no way a Power BI expert, and even in a couple of minutes, I'm able to build a dashboard that helps me really understand how my files are being shared out and what's going on with them. We're really excited to get this feature into your hands, and it's also coming soon. Now, the last feature, we've heard this request a lot, is it's great. Again, external collaboration is a wonderful thing, but how do I make sure that that external user, I don't know, Larry, who got added 2 years ago, does he still have access to content? That's probably not good, especially if no one's paying attention to him. How do we fix that? Well, the answer is we give you the ability to expire external access. As an admin, you can set up external access to expire after, let's say, 90 days. And then site admins are responsible for vouching for access and extending them up to IT policy. So let's run through a quick scenario. So let's imagine on day 0, and I should say, I don't know what it's day 0 of. I don't know if this is a zombie apocalypse scenario or a disease outbreak, but it's day 0. And I shared with Elvia, and she gets access on my site for 90 days. 30 days later, I invite Tim to the site. And the really cool thing is that Tim gets his own unique expiration date. He and Elvia's access can be managed separately, and they expire separately. So if Elvia loses access first, Tim's access is unaffected. Now, let's keep going a little bit. Just before Elvia's access expires, the site owner can come in and extend her access another 90 days. It just goes up automatically to whatever the site admin's policy is. But poor Tim, no one really likes Tim, no one liked working with him, and so when he expires, he loses access and no one's able to work with him, and he doesn't have access to the content anymore. So that's the scenario for it, but I figured it's way cooler if I actually show you a demo for it. And I'll add, we demoed this in the keynote on, I guess it was yesterday, but we've even got some new, more modern UI to show you today. So let me open up this Mark 8 project team site. This is my external collab site where we work on drones, I guess, the Mark 8, because apparently we've liked Marks 1 through 7. So I'm going to come in here to site permissions, and I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. And you'll see that my organization requires guests to lose access to the site after 60 days, and I'll click Manage. And I can see I've got 4 users here, Sean, Lauren, Raphael, and Sarah, and each of them has a unique expiration date. Now I see that Sean's about to lose access in 4 days, and I want to make sure that I can continue to work with him. So I'm just going to quickly select him, click Extend, Verify, and you'll see that it immediately bounces him out to July 21st, 60 days from today. Now just to make this demo even cooler, I'm going to come here to this document. I'm going to share it with my partner, who's definitely not the same person as me, Steven at Fabricam.com. So I'll select him and click Send. Perfect. So let's go back into that guest expiration UI. Oops. Let's not click on the people card. There we go. And what you'll see is that Steven now is showing up and will expire in 60 days from today. Any new access to the site could be grouped underneath a single expiration date. And as a site owner, I can come in here and decide that, you know what, I actually want Steven to expire earlier. I want him to get out of this site now. He's not actually supposed to be here. We've terminated our contract with him. All I have to do is select him and click Remove Access. I confirm, and Steven has now lost all access on the site. This is exactly what happens when he would expire automatically if no one extends their user's access. So we'll jump back into the slides. Cool. So as you saw, we're introducing the ability for admins to require external users to lose access after a set number of days, and external users who aren't validated will lose access. And validation is controlled by the site administrators. So we're really excited to get this feature into your hands, and it's coming soon. Okay, we did it. We've covered what's new for end users. We've covered what's new for admins. It is now time for what I've termed the recapping. It's the conclusion for our talk, and don't worry, I think we're going to do a better job than Game of Thrones did. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to tell that joke, but Jeff told it in the keynote, and so I feel totally okay with it now. So first off, we showed you the new password-protected links feature. This is where you can put a password on a link, and just make sure that if that link accidentally gets added to an email thread, there's a second factor of authentication that prevents other users from using it. We talked about the files request feature, so you can send out requests for files, say for budget proposals or things like that, and users can upload those files into a folder where you can review them, manage them, and work with them. We talked about the new link open receipts feature and just helping you understand which users are interacting with your links and files so you can just get that leg up on collaboration. We talked about app mentions and how you can easily bring people into documents and work with you simply in Office documents and just get to work right away. But not all work happens in Office documents. We talked about how you can do previews now for AutoCAD files, supporting more. I think we're at over 320 file formats now in OneDrive. And you'll be able to comment on all of them too. Again, letting you collaborate in context with the document just makes it much, much easier when you don't have to switch between multiple applications. We talked about how we're bringing that common sharing dialogue experience to multiple endpoints. We'd already had it in web and in Office, and now we're bringing it to Teams as well. And the real value here is it means that you only need to tell your users how to share once, and no matter what endpoint they use, whether it's OneDrive or SharePoint or Teams or Outlook, they all get the same experience. And because we're talking about sharing, it's important that we talk about how easy it is to now manage access with the new Manage Access UI, making it easier to see what links are shared, what users have direct permission, and remove them as needed. We also talked about our sharing email reminders. Just, we're all going to get back and have a bunch of these, I expect, next week. Just letting you know when you've been shared, a document's been shared to you and you didn't have a chance to look at it. We talked about save for later, just another way to get back to those files that are important to you or that were shared with you that you just don't have time to look at right now. We talked about popular around me and how you can see files that are popular in your network with multiple people. We talked about recommended, which is powered by the Microsoft Graph and lets you know what files you should kind of maybe pick back up that your colleagues are working on or might be interesting to you based on the subject. Switching to the admin side, we talked about the new modern sharing admin page, which just makes sharing that much easier to manage because you don't have to work through classic SharePoint pages, which aren't so much fun. We talked about how we're doing that same type of thing for site administrators as well by bringing the modern site, told you I couldn't get those 3 words out, the modern site sharing settings panel into the product. We talked about our new Azure B2B integration and bringing that great one-time passcode experience together with Azure AD B2B and how you're going to be able to preview that this summer. And we talked about sharing reports and how you're going to be able to see all of the features, all of the links and all of the unique permissions on a given site and use cool tools like Power BI or Excel or whatever you want to build on top of it just to understand who has access to my content. And finally, we talked about guest expiration and how you can require guest user access to be expired. And so at the end of the day, what I'm really trying to say is we've spent a lot of time improving sharing, we've made shared content better, and we've made administration better. And all of this is how OneDrive and SharePoint makes external sharing easy and secure. Thank you. So before we finish up, I've tried to put the session evals into a QR code and an AKA link for you. So please submit your evals. It helps us kind of improve on the talk for next time and become better speakers. And then we've got a couple folks from the team, if you all want to raise your hands in the front right now. So we'll take questions up here. Just feel free to kind of come up if you have questions, and we'll stay until someone kicks out of the room.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.